Hi, boys and girls in fifth grade. Well, guess what? This is your last assessment for this year. Congratulations. And it's all about integers. Integers, as you can see up here, are negative and positive whole numbers and zero, not fractions, just negative and positive whole numbers and zero. Integers are kind of like real life situations. You have negative things that happen in your life, they're not so good. And positive things that happen in your life, you want them to kind of balance each other out. Hopefully you even have more positives than negatives, right? How many of you have grandmas that maybe go to the casino? They may start out at the casino with $100. And if they come back with $100, they think they're doing pretty well. They broke even, but they had a lot of fun. We'll get back to breaking even in something called a zero pair in a minute. Okay, integers are noted on a number line. If the zero's in the middle, the positives go from 1 to 10 in this direction, and the negative go to the left in that direction, okay? Some kids find it easier to see the vertical number line here. As you see on a thermometer, those are old-fashioned thermometers. Everybody has digital thermometers nowadays, but in the olden days, the temperature would rise by this little red fluid called mercury rising, and as it would go higher, the numbers would go higher. This is the zero line, so starting with 1, anything above 1 gets higher, hotter. Anything under 1 would be -1, and it gets colder the lower you go down into the thermometer. Let's compare some integers now by looking both at the number line and at the vertical thermometer number line. 5 is easy to see that it is less than 6 because it's to the left of the number line, left of 6 on the number line. 9 would definitely be greater than a -1. And 7 would be greater than a -4. The further you go to the right, the higher the number. Further you go to the left, the lower the number. A -3 now is greater than a -9 because it's further to the right of a -9. 10, the positive 10, is definitely greater than a -10, and 4 is greater than a -2. Okay, now looking on the thermometer, the vertical number line, let's look. 8 would be way up here, is certainly greater than a -1. -2 now here would be greater than a -7 because 7 is lower. The further down you go, the lower the number is. 10 is greater than a -4, and a -1 is certainly greater than a -9. Okay, now let's order some of these integers. Ordering integers from lower to greater. A -10 would be lowest because it's way down at the bottom, followed by -1. Then you'd hop over into the positive numbers, 2, 9, and 10. Now, if you're going from greatest to lower, you would start with the positive numbers. The greatest positive number in this list is a 9, followed by a 2, 0, hop over the 0 into the negative territory, -1, and then -8 would be the very lowest number. Let's look on the thermometer number line again. Going from lower to great, well, lower would be the -10, lowest on this particular thermometer. Then you go up to -5, you're getting a little bit greater. Then you'd hop over the 0 to +1, and then up to 6, okay? And then greater to lower, you start with, let's say, an 8, go down to a 3, down to 0, and then all the way to -7, okay? I hope that helps you understand comparing and ordering integers. Now, let me put another page up here for you, and we'll talk about adding and subtracting integers, okay? And the little video that Mr. Cameron gave you with counters is really kind of cool. And we'll use counters as well, okay? First of all, let's go back to an old baseball adage. Did you ever hear the saying, you win a few, you lose a few, and the rest get rained out? During those rainouts, the teams were there, but it didn't affect the standings. Nobody won, nobody lost. We can use that concept in explaining how to add and subtract integers, okay? And that's something called the zero pair. One of each doesn't affect anything. They're there. The game got rained out. Nobody won, nobody lost, okay? Let's talk about adding first. If we have a +4 plus a -3, that would be 4 green counters because green is in the positive territory, and you put 3 negatives with it. They kind of balance each other out here. They negate each other, and you end up with a +1. On the number line, you can see that you started at number 4, go negative or to the left 3 spaces, and you end up at a +1. Okay, let's look at this particular example. We start at 2, and it's 2 positives. If you don't see the sign, it means it's automatically positive. So that's 2 greens. And I'm going to put a -4, 4 negatives with that. You pair up the positive and the negative like we did before, and you end up with 2 negatives left over. with 2 negative counters. And you can see this on the number line. Started at 2. Again, you're going negative to the left. Negative is always left. 1, 2, 3, 4. You end up at a -2 as your answer. Okay, let's try another. Now we have both positive numbers we're adding together. We have 3 green ones, 3 positive counters plus 1 positive counter. Nothing to subtract or take away or find any difference. We ended up with 4 positives. Look at the number line. We started at 3, added 1 more positive. We're at 4 on the number line. How about 2 negatives this time? We have a -3, 3 red ones, and we're going to add a -2 red ones to that, and you end up with a total of a -5. On the number line, we started at -3, went to the left, -2, we ended up at -5. Now, you don't want to make counters all your life, so we kind of came up with some rules. If the signs are the same, you just add them and use the same sign, okay? If the signs are different, like these first two, you would find the difference and then use the sign of the larger number, which happens to be the one furthest from 0, okay? That is adding integers. Now let's talk about what happens when we subtract them, okay? Actually, there is no subtracting of integers. We really are adding the opposite. And let's show you with counters how that works. Okay, here are 5 examples. We start with a +3, and we want to take away a -2. Look what happens. I have 3 positives, but I don't have any negatives to take away. This is where those 0 pairs come in handy. I have to put 2 more 0 pairs down here. It doesn't affect anything. The problem's still the same, but now I have 2 negatives I can take away. And what am I left with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positives. That's a way showing the little discs that you can take away 2, but you really had to add 2 of those 0 pairs to your grouping. Let's look at another one. +2 minus a -2. Okay, I have 2 positives here. I don't have any negatives. I have to bring those 0 pairs in again. Remember, they don't affect the value of anything. They're just there to help me subtract 2. If I have 2 0 pairs, now I can subtract 2 negatives. What am I left with? 4 positives. See, you're really adding the opposite. Well, that's the rule, and we'll show you again in a minute. Let's take a couple more examples. We have a -3, and we're taking away a -1. Okay, we started with a -3. This one's easy now, because if I just scratch out 1, -1, I end up with -2, and that's the answer there. What happens when I have a -1 and a +3? Well, here I started with a -1. I don't have any positives. I got to bring back those 0 pairs again, remember? They don't affect the problem, but they're there so that I have some positives to subtract from the problem. Okay, now if I take away a +3, that means I have to take 1, 2, 3. What am I left with? 4 negatives, okay? One more example. This is interesting. If I have a -2 and I'm taking away a -2, I started out with 2 negatives, take them both away, I'm end up with 0, right? Okay, one last one. If I have 5 negatives, okay, and I want to take away 3 positives, I don't have any positives in my original 5 negatives. I have to bring in those 0 pairs again. Remember the games that got rained out. And now I can subtract or take away 3 positives, leaving me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I had, 6, 7, 8 negatives, okay? Now, instead of making counters all your life, just remember, we don't subtract. We really don't subtract integers. We add the opposite, okay? So we're taking a +3, change the sign to plus, change this to plus. A 3 plus a +2 would be a +5. Okay, if you remember that rule and think about it, I think you'll get it okay. You can look at it on the number line on the thermometer as well. If you have a +3, I think up 3, down would be adding or taking away a -2 would be like a double negative. Like I can't do this, or that's a negative. But if I can't not do this, that's a positive. So 2 negatives make a positive. It's like saying 3 plus 2, which is 5, okay? I hope this helps clarify adding and subtracting integers with counters, and I hope that your life is full of more positive things than negative things. But don't worry about the games that get rained out. Nobody wins or loses, but you do have a good time playing. I hope you have a great time the rest of the summer. Hope I can see you back again in the fall. We'll take it as it comes, though. So stay well, be happy, and a little friend of mine is here today who wants to say goodbye for the last time. Bye-bye, boys and girls.
Bye-bye, boys and girls.
Have a great summer.
Great summer.
Bye.